Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this session about a lot of money. 120 billion. Can Europe really afford not to have gender equality in STEM careers by 2050? And to talk about this issue, please join me to welcome Ms. Vera Jourova, former commissioner, vice rector for Human Resources Development and New Technology at the Charles University in Czechia, Mr. Michel Schaeffer, president of the board at the European Innovation Council, and Professor Anne van der Jeugd, institute manager at KU Leuven Brain Institute, but also member of BeWise, an NGO favoring women careers in science. And as an introductory question, Ms. Jourova, I would like to ask you the following, because when, as a journalist, I look at the reports from the European Commission, would it be she figures, which are reports dedicated on gender equality, or the EU digital targets, which are more looking at technology in Europe? Well, the progress is very, very slow. Between 2021 and 2024, we've had an increase of women in ICT, and I'm reading because I don't want to say something false, from 19.1% to 19.5%. That's a plus 0.4% in 3 years. So progress is very slow, close to zero, and now with the re-election of US President Donald Trump, forces fighting against what they call the woke agenda, fight against gender equality policies. Even researchers in gender equality are more and more increasingly attacked by these groups. So my question to you is, do you think there's a real risk that this slow progress we are seeing will come close to zero, or even will backtrack, that there is a real chance of backlash?
Yes, thank you very much, and thank you for organizing this event. It's really a big thing, and thank you for inviting me. Well, the progress is very slow, and I want to turn your attention to maybe new thinking, because if we just look at the ICT as the, let's say, old sector, then yes, the progress is slow. We have very low representation of the women. It is being said that it's due to the lack of women and girls studying STEM subjects. It's all true. But I think that at this moment, we are in the point of discontinuity, and we have to look at the AI as the new invader into our lives. And we, of course, in case of AI, speak about technology. Technology is a tool, but the way the technology should be used should be more determined also to a large extent by women, because women have special capability to look at everything, including technology, as something which should serve the people. And I would say now or never. And if we only think about the chance for women, for those women who studied STEM subjects, it would be too small thinking. Because now the digital business and the business which is developing AI solutions is really hungry for the women, for the new talents, for those who will not only deploy cognitive capabilities, but also emotional intelligence. And this is the domain of women. So I would say that now we are approaching the era when the deployment and good usage of AI will, the need to use AI for the benefit of the people will be very much dependent on the activity and participation of women, and the women who did not study just mathematics or physics, this is a great chance for women leaders who studied psychology, sociology, lawyers, marketing experts, because they can fully use their ability to understand what the users need, what the society demands, what the leadership in the company or the office needs, and so on. So yes, 19% is a low figure, but it's a bit technocratic thinking about that. I think that now the chances are opening for women of with different qualifications, and I wanted to use this opportunity also to invite women to think about that, because the AI can serve the people, but without the good vector, good direction, it will do damage to the society.
Nice. It's quite refreshing to hear that despite the noise, the market is hungry for
Yes. I spoke to so many digital bosses, or bosses of the digital companies, and being the commissioner responsible for gender equality, I heard them begging, do more for women and girls so that they gain courage to enter the sector, and so that we unblock the potential. And this is about, the money is about that, no?
Yeah. So
we cannot afford to lose that money.
It's quite refreshing to hear that, I guess, but the business side is angry for it, despite the noise and the pictures with tech bros next to powerful leaders. Mr. Schäfer, I have a similar question to you, but from the institutional point of view, because the anti-gender equality movement is also gaining momentum in Europe and in European governments. So from your institutional perspective, have you seen a shift in direction? Are you spending less efforts into trying to have gender equality?
Well, we do three things. The first thing, as an EIC board, we have reiterated in June the importance of gender. We have said that the European Union should be more ambitious. Currently, we have 17% of the startups we fund have a female leader. The current target is 30, so we're also not reaching it, so it's platooning somewhere 17, 18%. But we have said it would be wiser to go to 50%. But be careful, the 50% means that in a leadership of a startup of 3 people, there's 1 woman. So 30% in practice is 10. So then, well, that's not good, but it's 10 times better than the average venture capitalist in Europe. There's a huge anti-women bias in VCs, also because the representation of women within the venture capitalists is weak. So the declaratory part is important, and I saw when I was at several fairs that women really feel supported that we say that, and I hope to say that every week. That's one thing. The second thing is that we do as an EIC a lot of activities to support women to apply. And there's a slight bias, so women get more support than men to apply for the EIC. And the third thing is that, let's say, in the evaluation of proposals, teams with a women in charge, with equal points, will get funded. So there's a slide, but let's take care of that. We want women either as a CEO, as a CTO, or a CFO. So in, let's say, the hard part of the management. So not human resources, that's fine, but that doesn't qualify. And what is also important is that I had recently a case where 2 men and 1 woman, the 2 men had each 15% of the shares and the women 5. Yeah, come on. So the woman in the leadership should have an equal share. So it's important to have, let's say, a declaratory effect, because there's a lot of declaratory effect the other side. And it's also important to make it in tangible actions to support, to coach, to help, and to have, let's say, a legal binding objective that basically we favor women and women applicants. And it is also the thesis of, it's not a luxury. We need it. We need to have, let's say, for everyone, the opportunity to be active. And I hate the word woke, because my wife would say as a professor, woke is basically Article 1 of the Dutch Constitution. And most countries in Europe have a title in the Constitution, everyone is equal. And it often starts men and women.
All constitutions.
All constitutions. Yes. Yeah. Indeed. Yeah. Because otherwise they cannot become a member of the European Union. Yeah. So it's not a luxury. It's an obligation it's a moral imperative, and it's let's say economic sound to do.
Great. Also quite refreshing to hear. Mrs. van der Jurgt, from a practical level in your day-to-day work at KU Leuven, what are the processes and the initiatives that you've taken concretely to ensure decisions are taken in a gender equal manner?
Yeah. First, I want to adjust the mistake that you made in the beginning. I'm not a professor, but I'm a professional. Manager at the Brain Institute in Leuven, which unites over 600 neuroscientists from both the university as well as the hospitals, KU Leuven. So it is my job then, of course, to make sure that women are represented. I do this, for instance, when I organize events. I make sure that there's a balance between in speaker panels, session chairs, also panel leaders. But also, for instance, when I organize events, like last week, I had a huge event called Brains United, together with our colleagues from ESSE Louvain, to celebrate 600 years of research. And this was actually an interesting case, because there also I made sure that I invited from junior level speakers, not only from women, but also from underrepresented backgrounds. So it was really a success, and we had over 300 participants, and it was like everybody felt like represented on stage. They could see people also in the leading positions, at panels, at chairs. So it was really a great pleasure to organize this. I have another example, because just like the rainbow, our strength comes from every color. It's not only gender and cultural diversity, but also neurodiversity. And 2 years ago, I organized our annual Science Day around the topic of neurodiversity. And there we really made sure that we covered not only the topic, so with scientific journal clubs, talks about neurodiversity and individuals, neurodiverse, but also there we had, for instance, several other activities organized by the student community. So it went from master students up to the level of full professors participating in, for instance, a huge mural, a wall, graffiti we made with an artist in collaboration with our neuroscience community working and living in the building. We also had excellent talks and presentations and testimonies about how to amplify neurodivergent voices in neurosciences. So also this event, people felt represented and they joined it, and it was a great success. So I think it's combining all those things. Also when I do communication and content on social media, in images, a gender-neutral language I use, but also in the official documents. If we publish the annual progress report, we make sure that in the achievements, often we have a lot of men, of course, excellent men winning big grants, for instance, ERCs, but I make sure that in these reports that are official, we also have really women at the forefront being there. So I think this is something that I do as a manager, not as a professor, but I try to,
Quite a number of different processes, including working on the language. I think this is something that is often absolutely not considered by people who are not aware of these issues. Maybe asking you again a question from your personal experience, could you share with us what made you pursue a career in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics?
Yeah, of course, I want to share it. As a child, I was always fascinated of how the human body works, of course. And also, in part, I was, let's say, inspired by, unfortunately, my grandmother's struggle with a neurological condition. So that's why I pursued a degree in psychology first, and then I entered a competitive PhD program in KU Leuven into neurosciences. So there I developed several novel mouse models to study Alzheimer's disease and to test new therapies, and I did really thrive in the lab. I had 13 publications during my PhD, but also I felt in the beginning already, when I went to conferences to present my research, like the big ones are now Society for Neuroscience, but also the smaller ones on Alzheimer's disease, I often felt like I was the only woman in the panels. Often also the keynote slots were reserved for men. So there already felt like it was a bit of a subtle thing that was going on, visibility of women researchers. And then I went into several postdoctoral positions abroad. I went to Australia, Portugal, and United States of America. And this brought an extra challenge for me because I needed to relocate, not only me, of course, but my family. So there I had to struggle with the work life, of course. So this balance in between my professional ambitions, but also, of course, maintaining personal well-being and of my family. So it was really an internal and external mix of feelings. And I think this is typical for the postdoc culture. So there are a lot of mistakes and bottlenecks into this that lead that a lot of people drop out of science. Not because they lack the ability of or the passion, but because they just cannot take it anymore. There's no stability. Often they work, of course, like everybody does, we like to do our work, long days, but there's never the chance that you can have a permanent position as a postdoc. That's why we call it laughingly a permadoc, like the permafrost. But so after that, it was a bit like struggling, and that's when upon my return to Belgium, I came back and I joined BWISE, so Belgian Women in Science, an NGO supporting the position of women in science. And that's why I got a great mentor. So the mentoring program at BWISE is really unique because we pair their senior mentors with junior mentees, and they can learn from each other. Because it's very important not only that women stay in science, but also that they can thrive in science, I always say. So this is something that we do with BWISE. Also there we have mentors, for instance, from industry, so that mentees can see that there is also life outside academia. They don't have to follow the traditional path. Not everybody can become a professor. It's also important for them that they see they can use their training as a scientist then, and to fulfill and to have really a fulfilling job outside of research. Like myself now, I'm managing research, so that's something that we also do with BWISE. Try to empower the women.
Great, and as you say, like there was a discussion in your journey about role models. That there was a lot of men when you started. So I would like to assume, Ms. Jourova, because you were commissioner and you worked on negotiating this little piece of law called the AI Act with only 1,000 pages, do you think that in the EU we have enough role models to inspire young girls in STEM careers? I know in the US they have the tech bros, and there's also the tech, I don't know how to call them, but girls maybe who are kind of fighting this, like the CEO of Signal, etc. But what about the EU? Do you think we have enough role models that are identifiable for young girls to choose STEM careers?
Yeah, okay. I think we do, but if you want short answer, that's it. I think that role models are very important because sometimes the young women have a strange message from their parents or grandparents that there are limits for girls. Especially for the STEM subjects, there is a bias that you should go to study them if you have a talent. And that's the bias that the women are said not to have talent for some things. It's not bloody true. It doesn't work in practice. So role models are important. My granny was telling me the whole my childhood, Věruška, only speak when they ask you something. It lived with me the whole life till I appeared in the commission. And it was the moment when I had to struggle with that really seriously, because otherwise I would not be able to survive in that environment. So I had to change it in myself into speak when you have something to say. And so I think that this is the burden which many girls and women have inside of themselves, inside of ourselves. So the main struggle is for us against ourselves and something which we were set at home. And here the role models come to the scene because the examples show that it is possible to get over the bias and the glass ceiling. Role models in the EU, well, for me, the role model was Margaret Vestager, the former Danish commissioner. And in Czechia, it's my current boss, Rector Milena Králíčková, rector of the Charles University, the first female rector. You can imagine the university was established in 1348. And now we have 4 years, the first woman in that position. We have Tania Lemogne, who was very long time the chief of the team of Google for Central and Eastern Europe. And she speaks very often in the public, encouraging girls and women to go for it. And again, staying in Czech reality, it's Dita Formankova, who established a very successful NGO, which is called Czechitas. And it is the NGO which received grants from big IT companies. And it's necessary to have some money for that, because I think there is too much mentoring and not enough sponsoring. Mm-hmm. And they have 3 slogans which fly in our public space. The first is, when women want, they can. The second is, fair play means fair pay. Mm. And the third is that women leadership is a new normal. And so I think that there are a lot of good examples in all the member states, and from the figures we have, we see that there are more difficulties in the eastern part of Europe, but it's also changing.
I see, and I think, you want to say something about what Vera just said, right?
What else the granny said.
We've been talking about a female rector, and I think it's...
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's a slow process. We have also today the inauguration academic year by our first female rector, so indeed. Yeah.
In 600 years, right?
Yeah, correct, 600 years.
So, as much as a Charles University, it seems. Mr. Schäfer, I wanted to ask you a question regarding, maybe I'm talking too much about the US, but I'm coming to my point, which is, so the new government has asked companies to scrap gender equality, but all types of programs they had to actually diversify the workforce. But what I would like to ask you as a professional working in this field, isn't it a bit suicidal to remove these things? Because in terms of business, if you don't have the world at your table, you can't really serve the world.
Yeah, it is suicidal to what the US does in terms of, let's say, gender balance. It's not wise. And it's even provocative, because it even goes into what words are you allowed to use or not. And my wife is a professor in culture and gender, and she says, well, if I go to the US, I'm back on a plane 10 minutes later. So she will not get in. Also because she wrote a lot of things which are maybe not really nice for Republicans. So you do yourself a disservice by doing that. And it's even, I think, Ms. Jourova pointed to it, it's also important to take into account differences in usages and stupidities in that. I mean, if I give a very stupid example, we have juries to select companies, and under pressure there was one jury who was doing a prostate cancer project. And they were asked, do you also look at the gender dimension? Yeah, after men we will look at prostate cancer with women. Well, they were not selected. So it's important to have that dimension in mind as well. Another example is, for example, there was 3 people coming, 1 woman, 2 men. They did quite well, but not excellent. And the jury said if the women had been the main defenders of the project, they would have won. By coincidence, I met the men later on in Paris and say, well, the next time, give more speaking time to your woman CEO, because she's much more convincing, I'm sorry, than you. So it's important to bring that dimension into, and we have great trios of women. The first Slovenian company funded by the SC is fully women leadership, and they do recycling of plastics, not the most sexy topic. And also recently, 3 Irish women won the Accelerator Award, and really focusing on hearing issues. And there's also a gender dimension to that. So it's worthwhile to do more, and it's worthwhile to support and promote more. So I think the US is on a dead end, but I think we should not underestimate the anger with young right-wing men. So there's also something to be done. I'm a left-wing man, so but there's something to be conscious of that, let's say the fear of women also come because men don't see a narrative in which they are, let's say, rewarded in a certain sense, so they become reactionary. So there is an issue there.
Okay, thank you. I think we've had quite interesting discussion on and quite refreshing on the business need, everything we can do at a practical level, institutional level, political level. What I would like to ask you is that when I look at the reports by the UN of the European Institute of Gender Equality, every time at the conclusion part they say at the current pace we will reach gender equality by 130 years, which is kind of a long time. I would like to see it while I'm alive, let's say 10 times faster, so in 13 years. So my question, and I'm going to give you a minute each because we're already almost there. If I gave you a magic wand to make gender equality progress 10 times faster and reach it in 2038 instead of 2154, what would you do? Anne, maybe starting with you?
Yeah, I think investing in indeed role models at an early stage is really important. Because indeed, if girls think they can become a scientist, so I'm really grateful that our NGO BeWise received money from the European Commission to organize Wise Night next week here in Brussels. It's in the planetarium and in the Dinosaur Museum, and there we have role models from diverse backgrounds, culturally, gender, and it's 30 Marie Curie fellows that will pitch their research to young children, kids from 9 to 99. So that's really important that they can then see, I can also become a scientist. So I think going for these early stages is really important, because otherwise you will never get the influx, right? And also, if I may say one more thing, the gender dimension also in research itself, because women are half of the population, and our bodies are different from men, right? So things that don't work for women, for instance, is because of the cycle we have, but also women are more prone to develop neurological conditions like Alzheimer's and dementia. So I think it's important you study what you find interesting, that you also put the gender dimension into those topics. So that, it's for the benefit for everybody. Yeah.
Thank you. Vera?
I would do more for better work-life balance. Because at the Charles University, we have 55,000 students, majority ladies, female students, majority, more than half. And then when they go to practice, they disappear from the labor market and from the chances to get good jobs. Why? Because they have children. Thanks God for that. And that's the paradoxical thing, because we need more children, the demographic line goes down. But is it really just a thing for the women to solve? Yeah? And suddenly, so we see that well-educated women are losing chances to keep track with fast-moving sectors and losing chances to get good jobs or managerial positions. So I think that there is a big space for improvement to enable the women, better to say maybe working parents, to be gender equal, but mainly to women to combine work and private life, and I think that it will help a lot.
Great.
Thank you. If you expected a quota from me.
Sorry?
I thought you will ask about the quota as a solution.
Yes, maybe this is also a question for you, but I would like to give closing remarks for Michelle.
Well, I think, Mrs. Jourova is pointing to the right problem. The real problem in terms of, let's say, where the gap emerges is between 25 and 35 years of age. And anecdotally, I asked my daughter, 27, do you want kids? Yes, I want kids, but I want to be father. So I looked at the boyfriend. I looked at you shall be mother then. So that's a need. There needs to be another gender balance in the homework, but I think there's a lot of barriers. That's in those years. And for example, in some countries, getting a kid is equal to one publication. As I would say, in our world, it would say one kid is equal to one patent. But we need somehow to recalibrate the fact that men cannot get kids. They can become mothers, but they cannot get kids. So we have to recalibrate that, because that's where the gap emerges. between 35 and 35 years old. And that's not something that's hard for us to solve, because by having the gender criteria in the management team, that's often later than they're in the end of 30s, beginning of 40s. But that's really important, because I think that in the younger age, it starts to work. Most women now going to university are prepared to work.
Thank you, and I think this is the best closing remark for this panel, which is, if we want 822 billion more in European GDP by 2050, well, remove young men who are just becoming dad from the market, and then you will have more balance. It's counterintuitive, but great conclusion, I guess. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.